Welcome, everybody, to the Raad Life, the only talk radio show that takes you along with host and age explorer Raad on his continuing journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older. The Raad Life is brought to you this week by Your Home for a Lifetime, a company dedicated to empowering you to stay safely, independently, and comfortably in your own home. And now here is your host, Raad.
Hello, everybody. Do I have voice? Hello.
You do.
I do. I have
you
voice.
do. Yeah.
I'm just thrown by this thing. Anybody who's watching us on Facebook, I feel like I was demoted today. Okay. Some of you know that I do another show the first and the third Wednesday of the month, right after this one, with a co-host by the name of Greg Sullivan, or for his friends, Sully. And it's called Check Out California. And Greg, who is a good-sized guy, I mean, you know, he's
Irish.
He's an Irish guy, big guy. He could actually play a role. I mean, can't you just see him playing roles, right? So anyway,
in the Irish Mafia.
In the Irish Mafia, right? Sully is usually sits to my right side, and we used to have a mic that basically is like on this one right here, where it's like on an arm overhead and stuff like that. And he's always constantly blocking me.
Always.
On camera. So
he keeps moving the mic arm, and I'm kind of like, move back, do something.
Which we'll find out today if it's actually intentional or it's an equipment error.
Yeah, right.
But basically, Paul has brought this thing here, and I feel like, I'm expecting like Larry King or something.
Well, and I figure his mic is bigger than yours, so he'll like that.
Well, it's wider. I don't know about longer. No, all right. Well, we're regressing on this show right away. Usually it takes us Manny, who's my guest here. Usually takes us about 30 minutes to get there. Manny, I guess
got there quick.
We got there quick.
Yeah,
right?
Got there quick today.
But I want to welcome my guest. Thanks, everybody, and just a little bit of homework. If you have any questions for our guests, as usual, Paul, what can they call on? What number can they call on to ask the question?
If anybody has a question about today's topic, they can call us live on the radio. We're live streaming right now at 949-330-7760. 949-330-7760. Operators standing by.
Or if you're more of a millennial and you like to tweet versus use the phone,
OC Talk Radio.
Thank you.
Hashtag.
All right, and then you can see us as well as hear us.
Facebook
if
Live.
Hearing us is not enough, by going to octalkradio.net and clicking the big Listen Live button, you can watch us on Facebook and on YouTube on the OC Talk Radio channel. And I believe Paul is feeding it also live on the Raad Life Facebook page as well, right, Paul?
Yes, and
okay.
Twitter.
Are we still doing Periscope too?
Periscope, I'll turn on right now.
Yeah, Paul is a traditionalist. He still uses media that's basically on its way out. But
I haven't done Google Hangouts in a while, but okay.
Bulletin boards? No, never mind. Okay, so anyway,
I'm old.
Yeah, well, you know what?
This is an old show.
But that's okay. It's okay. It's appropriate because we are going to talk about forgotten history.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether your role in history will be forgotten or not, but, my guest today, Manny, would you introduce yourself, please, to everybody?
Well, I'm Manny Pacheco. I'm a radio broadcaster in Southern California for good 38 years, actually. Member of the Pacific Pioneer Broadcasters. I've also become a self-published author, and fortunately, I can say that I'm an award-winning author.
There you go.
Yes, multiple times over,
yeah,
from what I can tell.
What is the Pacific? For those that don't know, what's the Pacific Broadcasters?
Oh, Pacific Pioneer Broadcasters are those individuals who have been in the business for 20 years plus, and actually, in many cases, 30, 40, 50 years. I was nominated to become a Pacific Pioneer Broadcaster, which is a West Coast pioneering broadcast group that covers
just like it says.
Southern California, yeah. And I was nominated by two individuals, Roger Carroll, who, of course, was a big radio announcer at KMPC, and, of course, the legendary Art LeBeau.
Yep. Art LeBeau, right. Yeah, you know Art LeBeau or knew Art LeBeau?
Well, actually, more than know him, he is actually my mentor. I got into the business because of Art LeBeau.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, there's definitely some broadcast history going on here today. And sorry, Paul, you've been outshined.
I've been outshined. Where did you work at any of the big stations, the KFIs?
Well, actually, my first job, absolute first job, 6 months before I graduated at UCLA, I got a job at KRLA, historic 11:10 a.m.
Yeah.
KRLA.
Wow, yeah.
And I became one of the 11:10 men, and I got to work with some of I mean, really greats.
Wow.
Humble Harv, the real Don Steele,
Humble
Charlie.
Har- oh
yeah,
my God, Charlie Tuna, yeah.
Absolutely, oh yeah. And Johnny Hayes, and of course Huggy Boy and Art LeBeau.
Yeah.
So I was the kid. Now that I've done this for 38 years, anytime I go to a radio station now, I work at KNX.
Yeah, but what exposure. Man.
I'm not the kid anymore.
You're not the kid anymore. I don't know. I'm getting a little bit of young at heart going on here across the table.
When I first came to Hollywood, I got the privilege to meet accidentally and got to know him somewhat, Gary Owens. Enough where he'd always say hi to me.
Roger Carroll worked at the same station as Gary Owens, and Roger was kind enough to introduce me, and Gary became a good friend. Gary
Yeah.
Owens was a great guy.
Funny guy, really,
so
really.
I'm getting
funny
a
guy.
sense of how this show is going to go here today. So I want to make sure that people are able to follow, because a lot of people may not recognize these names. We're going to throw them out. You're going to have to just Google.
If you live outside the Southern California.
If you live outside, well, or if you're a certain age, maybe you're not getting it.
If
but
you're of a certain age, you certainly would know Gary Owens because he was that voice of Laugh-In.
Right.
He was the DJ on Laugh-In.
So we're not really going to do these characters justice, basically. So I would suggest, Manny, why don't you give people at least your website?
ForgottenHollywood.com is my website. I was able to actually win an award from the Los Angeles Press Club, and I took. Now here's a name you will know. I took third place for best blog in 2013. Second place was James Franco.
Wow.
Wow.
And we were both beat by The Rap.
So
The Rap?
The Rap.
The Rap.
Yeah, The Rap.
So you just set the benchmark of 2013. Now, obviously, we're 2018 right now, but you're doing stuff relevant to history of Hollywood, broadcasting. I know you do have a podcast that you do too, right?
Well, I do, and Out of Therapy Cable,
Yeah.
which is here in Orange County.
Yeah.
And I also have a weekly radio show that airs at Fullerton College.
Uh-huh.
on
Where you teach also, right?
Well, I'm also a professor. Yeah.
What do you teach?
I teach advanced broadcasting. I would love to teach Hollywood history,
Yeah.
but because of my background in broadcasting,
That's where
it's an easy get. So I'm able
Right.
to broadcast. I'm able to teach broadcasting
Right.
with no problem at all. But I've kind of positioned or branded myself as a Hollywood historian because I wanted to step out of Art LeBeau's formidable shadow of the oldies but goodies.
Yeah.
And that's considering I'm 6'4" and Art LeBeau's 5'6", he still leads quite a shadow.
shadow, even though he's shorter. Yeah, you know what? And I understand that. I'm going to make you a promise. I'm going to see if I can't find you some venues to basically put that out, because I think it's fascinating. I happen to live in San Clemente, and there's a lot of history there from the 20s,
Right.
relevant to entertainers.
Newport Beach
and
also.
Newport Beach,
Yes.
right. So I think. Do you know a gentleman by the name of Alan Hess by any chance?
No, I don't know
Okay,
him.
he's a historian. He specializes mostly in architectural and mid-century modern is kind of his thing, Googie architecture kind of stuff.
Right.
But I've been on the historic site in San Clemente for over 13 years, and I was president just until this last cycle. So this would definitely be something. So you and I are going to be talking about something else about this later.
People of a certain age really do get into the whole forgotten Hollywood experience, and basically what I've done is I've tied it to Americana and Hollywood history, and what I metaphorically call Hollywood in Vine moments, where Hollywood intersects with Vine. In that, I talk about the great character actors. These are the actors who appear below the titles of films, because I feel that we're never going to forget Humphrey Bogart,
Right.
Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe, Elizabeth Taylor, Ingrid Bergman. We're not going to forget
but
these.
the forgotten.
The people you see on Casablanca or The Wizard of Oz or Gone with the Wind, you see a face that you're familiar with. You go, oh, I know who that is. That's and you can't remember their names. But the amazing thing is these individuals made as many films as Jimmy Stewart or Cary Grant, but they also happen to tell remarkable American stories. They've been involved with the Great Depression, the end of World War II, the assassination of John Kennedy, McCarthyism. You'd be surprised how these stories resonate, and I'm able to tie their story with Americana, and it resonates with people of a certain age.
Well, a lot of them have. Forget about the on-screen personas that they depicted. A lot of them actually have very interesting backstories, and a lot of involvement in things that cross into sort of historical significance.
Right.
Right. I mean, it is fascinating when you start doing. We are in a very history-rich environment. As much as Southern California is a tear down and reinvent,
Right.
there's a lot of roots when you start tapping things from one side to the other. One of the things that I found recently when it came to San Clemente, for example, is there were two men that were very instrumental in the foundation of the city. One was Ole Hansen, who was the former mayor of Seattle, and the other one is a gentleman by the name of Hamilton Cotton. Hamilton Cotton was a fundraiser for FDR, basically, and FDR would come off the train in San Clemente, and they would basically talk about Democratic Party fundraising. Ole Hansen basically was a Bull Moose Party Teddy Roosevelt, right? And FDR and Teddy Roosevelt were cousins, right? And there
Right.
was linkage to the family, estate on the East Coast. But the thing that was very fascinating is somebody sent me a picture of Hamilton Cotton, what I refer to as a 1920s selfie. Hamilton Cotton being photographed by Ole Hansen with a little brownie, right? And next to Hamilton Cotton is this lady who is called Victoria, who's his wife. And so here's Victoria and Hamilton Cotton at the top of what became Victoria Street in San Clemente.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Doing a little digging, come to find out that Victoria actually is the daughter of Carson of the city of Carson, whose grandfather was actually the first alcalde of Los Angeles, who basically she draws her lineage all the way back to the Dominguez Hills
Well, you know,
family and the Adobe.
up and down California, you can just go to Hearst Castle.
Yeah.
There's a tie with William Randolph Hearst and Marion Davies, and then she ended up their love child
Yeah.
ended up marrying Arthur Lake of the Blondie series. I mean, those are
It's
the kinds of
amazing.
stories. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I know exactly what
it's
you're
really
talking about.
amazing,
Yeah, yeah.
because everybody looks at California as being sort of this new, improved, constantly changing. There really is a legacy. There really is a history that transcends
Yes.
all this sort of what would you call it, like staging that constantly is changing around us. There is a
And it's not like
connectivity.
it's not like Vegas where when they tear down, they actually just implode.
They implode. Yeah, no. Again, I just a couple months ago, I found out that one of the houses from the 1920s that was basically a mansion, one of the mansions on the bluffs in San Clemente again, we thought was torn down because they built a tower in 1970s of condos. The developer that built the tower of condos actually took the living room of that estate house that was there and actually just kind of shifted it on the property and cladded it with wood siding. The inside of that living room is still there, and it's now the community clubhouse for that condo tower.
Wow.
And unless you go in there and you have a reference of the photographs of the time, you would basically have no clue, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's fascinating, and I guess I'm making a point that people really should look beyond the surface in Southern California. But when did you start in broadcasting? Let's start there.
Well, I started back at UCLA.
So you actually pursued this as an academic path?
No, actually, at UCLA, I was the commissioner, the community services commissioner. I was taking actually a political science path.
Okay.
But I discovered the radio station, fell in love with the idea of doing radio, and when I turned 21, I actually was diagnosed with cancer of my kidney.
Wow.
And the good news is I didn't have it. But as I'm recovering in the hospital, I'm thinking, do I really want to be a lawyer? Or do I really want to be in the business of entertainment?
Right.
And here I was just starting to do this radio thing, and it's very easy to get into. And I thought, I think I'm going to take this direction. And I spoke with my folks, and they were very supportive.
Nice.
And then 6 months before I graduated at UCLA, I got the job at KRLA. And then it never happens. Let me tell you something. This is something that's
To walk right into
the number 2 market in the nation. Most people when they leave college.
So how did that happen, Manny?
Well,
Was it just one of those fortuitous things?
It's a goofy story.
I'm all ears.
We like goofy stories here.
Well, I'm the general manager and the program director at the college station, KLA. KLA. Okay, that's important. KLA. And Jack Roth.
Branding.
Yeah, well, there's a reason for this. Jack Roth, who works in tandem with Art LeBeau, called during the Christmas break. And I'm sitting there, because it's Christmas holiday. Nobody's at the radio station but me and a couple other people that are working on my staff. I pick up the phone. They said, we're really looking for a bilingual individual from the college ranks who also understands and loves oldies. Now, anybody who knew me at KLA at UCLA knew I was a big oldies lover. So I thought, okay, who's
So
playing a joke on me?
What year are we talking?
This is 1979
Interesting.
into 80, and I thought somebody was playing a joke.
Yeah.
And then I found out it was actually real, and I was the only Latino on the air, and I was bilingual, and I love oldies. Next thing you know, I'm sending a tape. I get a job, and within a year, I'm doing evenings right after Johnny Hayes. So that was exciting.
So how old were you when you were playing oldies?
This was 23, 24 years old.
Wow.
But I had a great love of oldies.
I have an affinity to that too. I've always had it.
Now, can I share my jealousy here? I grew
No,
same time. I'm the general manager that run the student station at the University of Michigan, another big college radio station. And of course, I can't come to LA and just walk in and get a job. So I have to work my way up through lots of little mini markets. To the biggest market I got to was WMYK K94 in Norfolk, Virginia. I don't want to say Norfolk, which was a top 40 market. But oh my God! I mean, I can tell you how difficult it is. You don't walk out of college and into a major market station.
It doesn't happen. Folks actually leave this market. They go into places like in Nebraska, or they go into Virginia, or they go into Montana. They go, if they're lucky, they might hit Phoenix, or maybe a subsidiary.
I was thrilled to break into the top 40. I was in the top 40 market.
To establish and then hopefully be able to go to a major market. Right?
And I'm sitting there thinking, how the heck did this just happen? I really knew how lucky I was. And then working opposite these legends. Right. And I thought, well, then I guess it was meant to be. Maybe I was meant to have this diagnosis, of my kidney, and maybe I was meant to make this decision.
Right, because otherwise you may have gone down the path. I've got a political science degree. I'm going to go be an attorney. Maybe I'll teach. I'll go into the foreign service, something of that nature. Right. There's certain paths when you get a political science degree,
which was my path. I had a political science degree, and I did go to law school, and I did think of going into the foreign. So I did all of those things because radio didn't seem like it was. I pursued a dual path. So when I went to the university, I went to law school at William and Mary. I was also working at the college station, which is how I got the job at in Norfolk.
So basically what you guys are saying, and I think I would probably even echo, is the fact that once you get this bug, it's pretty hard to let go.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, you think that would be the top rung. I didn't realize that this was going to be just the beginning, because then I got to know well the general manager, who was Bob Moore, and he was friends with folks at Channel 13, and they were running a public affairs show, and they just happened to need a sidekick.
Wow.
And I end up on a show that gets Daytime Emmy nominated called In Studio on Channel 13. And I'm thinking, this just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Why am I so lucky? And I know it can't be because of necessarily talent. There's got to be an element. What is it that Branch Rickey says? Luck is the residue of design. So maybe I designed it this way, but I knew that there was something lucky about this, and that if I were going to go back and teach, which is what I do now, I had to tell my story, but with the asterisks that I'm a very lucky individual.
Right. And I hope this doesn't offend you, but at that time it was important to have the big voice. I mean, Gary.
I don't have a big voice.
Yeah, and that classic, that classic big boss radio sound.
But there was a transition going on in the 1980s where they were getting away from that, and I got lucky that way too.
It was overdone. Yeah, there was too much of the big voice.
Right.
Yeah. No. The reason why I'm even I want to go down this path, Manny, is because again, this show when it first started was this baby boomer show, right? And we had no idea. It's sort of I really am a believer in happy accidents.
Very happy
and
accidents.
Being open to receive. And if you're conscious enough and aware that you're lucky to experience it while you're doing it versus just looking back at it later. Literally, this show, when it started, we had no idea what it was going to smell like, look like, sound like, anything, right?
Right.
And it ended up being this sort of very organic conversational format, right, that really is a life's journey. And what's interesting, and I don't do a lot of prep, I'll admit it on the air, all the time. I don't do a lot of prep because I want to get that authentic experience of discovery.
Well, you also have a knack, if I may say, of listening to your guest.
That's very nice of you. Thank you, Manny. I appreciate that.
And that counts for a lot.
Yeah. So you heard that, Mom? I actually listen to people. I don't just speak to them. Okay. But the fascinating thing about this is your journey, and this is sort of the uniqueness of your own story.
Right.
Right. So what happens after that?
Well,
What was the next run?
I sidestepped everything. I said, well, I've reached about as high as I'm going to go. I enjoy the ride, but I want to do something for myself. So I got involved with karaoke. Now
What?
now that may sound very silly, but let me
What?
tell you, this is not your grandmother's karaoke, okay?
Okay.
I didn't think it would be.
Or even your brother's karaoke. This is a karaoke where I ended up. I didn't realize that the karaoke magazine, the Karaoke Scene magazine, is actually published in the city of Cyprus, where I now live. I mean,
I
talk
moved
about
to
lucky.
Cyprus because that's where the
lucky.
Yeah.
And they run the largest karaoke contest in the nation, where our finals are held. We've held it at the Hollywood Palladium,
Oh my goodness.
at the Queen Mary, currently at Los Angeles County Fair. Our winners, one of our winners ended up on American Idol. Another of our winners ended up on Oprah's Karaoke Challenge and won $250,000.
Oh my goodness.
And he also got, with Def Jam, he got signed by Def Jam. I'm not talking just karaoke. I'm talking about big time, heavy money, lots of talent karaoke.
I had no clue, man.
And I'm the.
I didn't know there was such
I
a
had
karaoke.
no clue, nor did I know that Cyprus, California was
the
The
center
hot-
of
the
it.
hotbed.
capital of,
Yeah,
the
the hotbed.
capital of karaoke.
And so I became the contest coordinator of the largest karaoke contest. But again, I had to it's called a reinvention because radio was changing, and I got that, and it didn't know where it was going. It's finally settled, and it's now really something that
Actually, there's been
that's
a
doing well.
rebirth, I think,
a,
right?
a real rebirth, and I got myself involved back into radio doing traffic, and I started working at Airwatch here in Orange County.
So were you in the plane? Were you in the
No, I wouldn't get in a helicopter plane. No, you won't get me doing that. but now I end up at KNX 1070, and I'm happily there every Sundays actually, if I can promote that.
And what's the show?
Absolutely,
What's the show that you do there?
Well, no, it's just a regular. It's KNX does the news. There's no special show,
Right.
and I do
You
traffic
do
on the
traffic?
fives. Yeah, from
Traffic
noon to
on the
6.
fives,
Yeah, but there was still something gnawing at me that I had this love of Hollywood. And again, I wanted to step out of Art LeBeau's shadow because Art was my mentor, and he always gave me some great advice.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided to write these books. Now, I just didn't know that these books were going to send me to a different.
What was what was the impetus to do that? I mean, did you do it because you were trying to get out of the shadow? Was there something that was drawing you, a calling that you know?
Did
I
you
mean,
have
I'm
any
I'm
connection with
assuming
old
you'll-
Hollywood? Did you know anybody in old Hollywood?
Well, let me tell you something. I didn't. But here is the deal. My parents were really big on education, so I really got my BA over at UCLA. I was very happy. I graduated. I didn't leave UCLA just because I got the job at Carolina. I actually graduated, got the.
So you got the job before you graduated.
Oh, absolutely, and I got my BA in political science. But my grandmother was really big on the humanities. I mean, when she got to be 80, 85 and more house-ridden, and her kids would go off and raise their families. Well, I was her oldest grandchild. Yeah. I'd leave UCLA or I'd be leaving work, and I would stop by my grandmother's house, and there was this newfangled station, Turner Classic Movies, and we would watch movies together. And then I realized, wow, I can take 40 years of difference between us and still have something to talk about.
Commonality,
Yeah, and it wasn't just about the idea of the kinds of movies, because my grandmother was big on horror. She loved The Wolf Man and King Kong
you're
and Mighty
kidding.
Joe Young. I liked the women's pictures. I liked Betty Davis and Claude Rains, but that didn't matter. Whatever was on Turner,
you watch.
we would watch, and
Yeah,
then we would
it's a
discuss.
great station, yeah.
And she really generated that love that I have for Hollywood history, and I said, maybe I can rebrand myself and become a real Hollywood historian. Now, granted, I haven't been doing it as long as Leonard Maltin or Robert Osborne.
Robert Osborne, right.
But
Former editor of the Hollywood Reporter, who became a
Exactly.
big.
But in 2009, I said, I'm going to rebrand myself. I'm going to become a Hollywood historian. I'm going to really immerse myself in the whole Hollywood experience. And gosh, all of this work I did in radio and karaoke. I mean, I never really. I did my job. We got an Emmy nomination on Channel 13, but never anything personal. All of a sudden, I'm starting to win awards for the books that I'm writing, and I'm thinking, wow. And then Bob Moore, the guy that got me the job over at Channel 13, says to me in an email, he says, Manny, you know, if you knew that you could write, you should have done this a long time ago because you're a much better writer than you are on the air. I don't know if that was a backhanded compliment or what, but it was. But you know, I've gotten all these compliments, and here's the best part: every time I do, let's say a book signing, it leads to something special. I did a book signing. I'll tell you a great story. I did a book signing at Cypress Library, just the community library, my home library.
Well, they got to do something when karaoke's not going on.
Exactly.
Right.
30 people show up. One guy comes over. At the end of my oral presentation, can I say that on live?
Sure.
Oral presentation. Okay, I figured 30 minutes are in. I could get there.
We're in
Okay,
there. We're going back to where we started here.
Okay, oral presentation. And this guy comes over to me and he says, you know, I go and see a lot of oral presentations, and I run a little mom and pop down the street, and every 10 or 20 oral presentations that I see, I will ask one of those individuals to come to our little mom and pop to speak to our group. And I said, I'll work at any mom and pop. I'll show up. Just let me set up a table with my books. I'll do it for free. I'm happy to do it. What's the name of your mom and pop? He goes, Disneyland.
Wow.
Mom Bob Pop Walt and Mom Minnie.
It's a little mom and pop. And, you know, I've ended up at the Magic Castle doing these presentations. And I end up meeting just remarkable individuals.
So what do you write about? Because there's a lot to write.
Well,
Hollywood.
And you have a certain, like, area that you're focused on
right.
with your books, right?
I handle the from the 1930s to the early 1970s, and I basically tell stories about the great character actors and how they relate to, I think, really important American history. I'll give you a
Give
couple,
an example. Yeah,
Give us an
at
example.
least an
Right.
example.
Please, yeah.
Did you know that the first four bombs that were created, atomic bombs, have a tie to Hollywood?
No.
And I'll give you those stories. I'll do it as quickly as I can.
The Fat Man and Little Boy, or
The
whatever.
Fat Man and Little Boy,
Right.
absolutely. Peter Lorre, Sidney Greenstreet made 7 movies together.
Yeah.
7 movies.
Fat Man and Little Boy.
Fat
yeah.
But before the Fat Man was created,
Those
because
are
the
the
little boy was already created, and that was going to be set, and that was the one that ended up dropping in Hiroshima.
Right.
And the Fat Man ended up in Nagasaki. But
Right.
before that happened, the Fat Man was made of plutonium, and so that plutonium had never been tested to see if when dropped would
Would
it
They had
blow
no
up.
idea what was going to happen.
So they
Right.
tested it in New Mexico. Well, the individual who created all of this was a big movie buff. And so, and a big Dashiell Hammett fan, the man who wrote a lot of great mystery.
Yeah.
He nicknamed that first bomb that they tested the Thin Man, after Myrna Loy and William Powell.
Yeah.
So there it is. There's a tie to Hollywood. The Fat Man, Little Boy, tied to Peter Lorre and Sidney Greenstreet. After the war ends, I mean, literally, Sidney Greenstreet and Peter Lorre are tied to the end of World War II. After that bomb drops, those bomb drop, they're still not sure if it's going to work, so they decide they're going to drop one more bomb in the Easter Islands in 1946. Well, the night before, the pilots went to go see their favorite actress in a great movie called Gilda, starring Rita Hayworth and Glenn Ford. Well, they decided to nickname that bomb Gilda. When Rita Hayworth found out about this, being the Latin Spitfire that she was really upset. I mean, she was tossing tables and throwing chairs. I mean, what are they saying, that my movies are bombs?
Oh, yeah, right.
And her husband, Orson Welles, said, no. Remember that when the bomb was dropped in Hiroshima, that the pilot, Paul Tibbets, he named his plane after his mother, the Enola Gay.
Right.
And so this is actually a compliment to you. It's Gilda. So please sign them an autograph.
Talk about small world. We had Paul
We had-
Tibbets' grandson.
Not Paul Tibbets.
I mean, not
we had the pilot who flew the
Second mission.
bomb plane over Nagasaki.
Wow.
We
he
had
flew
him on
with
the
Paul
show,
Tibbets in that group.
and,
Yeah,
and,
right.
and that's a whole story. You know, how he got to be a pilot, the grandfather got to be a pilot, the son and the grandson all became pilots. But here's the story, and he wrote a book. The story is that Nagasaki was never the target. There
Well, we
was
knew
another
that, yeah,
village
right.
There's another town that, because of the smoke that had drifted over from regular bombing, what was going to be a clear bombing raid then became called off, and they ended up dropping out Nagasaki.
Right.
They
Well,
went to
you
the
know,
backup, yeah.
and here is the other tie. You think I would be
No,
done
but
right
this is what I'm talking about, Manny. It's amazing that out of all the 2 books that you wrote, the story you first share on this here
Ends up
is about this, and it links to somebody we had sitting in that
as a
same
guest.
chair that you were
Yeah.
as a guest.
6 degrees of separation.
amazing.
Absolutely.
And kind of just the one story that he told that I'll never forget. He got to go see his father's plane, which is enshrined at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
It was renovated and
Cleaned it
restored.
up, put it all back together again. He walks in, and his father was a serial cigar smoker, like somebody like Curtis Lane and all these guys, just always chomping on a cigar. And as soon as he walks out, he had never been in this plane.
Pipe smoker.
Well,
He was a pipe smoker.
Whichever it
Yeah,
was,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And so he goes into this plane. This is the 60s or 70s or something, and they invite him to go see his father's plane sitting in the museum. And the minute he walked in, he smelled.
He smelled his father's pipe
Wow.
tobacco.
And it brought back
Just
feelings of home.
instantly
and-
flooded him with memories.
And he flew over to the event on a plane that his son was flying.
Wow. Well, the other thing I was going to tell you about too was that they could not properly latch the bomb because it was called the Fat Man, and so they had to actually go to a company that put together these latches. Well, there was, of course, Harpo Marx and Groucho Marx and Chico Marx. Well, the Marx brother that wasn't funny was Zeppo Marx, and he ended up leading,
agent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he became an agent, and he
years, yeah.
became a manufacturer of clamps.
That's right. I remember that.
And-
I knew he was manufactured. I knew
So
what he
he
made. yeah.
actually manufactured the
The
clamps.
clamps that held the Fat Boy?
The Fat
Fat
Man,
Man?
the Fat Man
That's
bomb.
hilarious.
So
Wow.
again, Hollywood tie after Hollywood tie after Hollywood tie. The assassination of John Kennedy, the man who actually was accused of shooting not only a president but a police officer, runs into a movie theater. I mean, absolutely runs
Lee
into.
Harvey Oswald, right?
Right, Lee Harvey Oswald sitting in a movie theater watching a movie with Van Heflin that movie moguls were convinced it was going to be a top movie. It turned out to be a stinker that nobody's ever heard of, and everybody remembers the grassy knoll and the book
Right.
Depository in November
Right.
22nd, 1963. They remember Jack Ruby, and they remember Lee Harvey Oswald. They remember he was arrested in a movie theater. They don't remember the name of the movie, and that movie was Cry of Battle. And if you don't think that that's important, if you go into that movie theater, which exists still today, there is a placard on the seat where he was arrested.
Wow.
That has become an iconic location.
To go sit there, yeah.
So for people to take pictures or do whatever they do, Hollywood history and American
So
history.
how do you find this history? How do you dig it up? Because it's dying quickly.
It's
These-
research. It's just
Yeah.
research. And you know, it's funny you mentioned that because I had a conversation with David McCullough and Doris Kearns Goodwin, two
Famous
fabulous,
historians, yeah.
famous historians,
Yeah.
who said, you know, we're lucky. We find diaries and letters that are written. In today's age, everything is Twitter
Yeah.
and everything is email. It's disposable. I pity the I pity the American historian or any historian, the Hollywood historian, any kind of historian, 50 years from now, if they're trying to find what was the important items that happened in 2005, 2010, 2015, because we're in such a disposable age.
Can I share my
well-
one favorite Hollywood story? We share so much together. I was in political science, I was in radio, and I came and worked in Hollywood as a press agent for a number of years. And my favorite of all, I was fortunate to meet the Jimmy Stewarts and the Gregory Pecks and all the stuff, the last of that era that I grew up watching. Events I did or people I represented or people I worked with and would tell me stories. So of all my Hollywood stories that I've ever heard, I'll just try and do it quickly. This is my favorite one. I had the privilege, one of my first clients was Adam West, Batman. And my partner, who I ended up partnering with, had earlier been the publicist on the Batman series. So I kind of heard this from a couple different angles. And I'll tell it this way. The kid who became Robin,
Burt
Ward,
Burt
which
Ward,
wasn't
yeah.
his real name. His real name was, I always get this wrong, but I think it was Sparky Gurwitz or something. Anyway, his
Which
dad
is why
was
they changed it.
His dad was, I think, a doctor. I may have this a little off, but they lived in Beverly Hills, and Sparky wanted to be a movie star. And so his mother said, well, why don't you go down the street? There's a woman who is a child actor's agent, and you look very young for your age. And so he went down, and she said, yeah, there's an audition over at 20th Century Fox. Why don't you go to it? Now, it wasn't for Batman. It was something else. And he got onto the set, onto the studio, wandered around, saw a bunch of other young men standing in line. He thought, this must be it. It wasn't the audition he was sent for. It was to be the sidekick on this new series, Batman. Well, out of thousands and thousands of people, he's picked to be Robin. And it goes to his head and becomes such a jerk, I'm sorry to say, that everybody hates this kid. Nobody likes him. They used to set off explosions too close to him, I was told, to try and, throw him off and do all these things. So his first gig is Robin. He becomes kind of arrogant, not too popular. Batman is canceled because they're starting the new syndication rules, and they don't want to pay syndications. Adam never got a dime from all those years of Batman.
Same thing for Gilligan's Island and a few others. Yeah.
And Daniel Boone and all these, because they literally stopped the show, not because it wasn't popular, because they didn't want to pay reruns as this new residual effect was taking place, which Ronald Reagan was president of the Screen Actors Guild negotiated. So he never got another acting job in his life. He goes off on one audition. He becomes one of the most famous people on television for a couple of years and never works again.
And he's never called Sparky again.
Never called Sparky again.
No, but I mean,
that's Hollywood.
Okay, so the books, before we run out of time, the books are Forgotten Hollywood,
Forgotten History, and Son of Forgotten Hollywood.
I thought
Forgotten
was
History.
very clever, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Like Son of Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah, no,
Son
throwback
of the
to the
Sheik, Son of Flubber.
Yeah, it didn't used to be called, like Death Wish 2. They actually had a son of.
Or Bride of.
Or Bride of.
I can't call it the next one Bride of, though, because then it would become,
Well, it's a little,
Yeah, it would be creepy.
Well, you should go up. I don't know.
But
I'm sure you've wandered, but as you wander the Hollywood world up there, if you get into any of the film stuff, you start to meet some of the characters you're talking about, people who weren't famous to the public but were character actors or somebody.
Claude Rains and
you look at the gentleman who basically ended up doing what's his name? Jonathan. Why am I blanking his own last name? The guy who basically became the most interesting man in the world.
Oh yeah, we just had him on a while ago. I've forgotten his name now. He was kind of a character actor.
He was a character actor. He was in a lot of westerns on TV.
Right.
And there are things that I find myself watching some older movies and I'm going, oh my God, that's so and so.
Right.
This was a bit role that they did or a character role that they did, and now they're basically a headliner.
And if you go on Facebook, which of course this show is on Facebook, you will see that there's a renaissance of these character actors. More people know more about the, and I'd like to think that my books had something to do with that.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that. Now, that's maybe.
Well, we're going to claim it, Manny.
Yeah, I'll own it.
We said it here first. But look, what's the guy? What's the kid's name that, now he's a young man that plays the lead role in the Transformer movies?
Well, see, I'm with the 30s and the 70s, so you.
Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf. Yeah. Now, did you know that Shia LaBeouf was actually the side character in the first Charlie's Angels?
No.
Or Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. He was actually this little kid.
Right.
He was also in a movie called Holes, right?
Mm-hmm.
That had what's his name in it? Angelina Jolie's father.
Oh, John Voight.
John Voight was in it,
sure.
and so was Sigourney Weaver.
Who I almost killed once. I almost ran him over in Hollywood once, but that's another story.
So here's the thing, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen who are listening, you should go get Manny's books. And
Yes.
Manny, where can they get the books from?
Well, they can get them on Amazon.
I'm going to hold them up here.
Hold them up even higher there. Yeah, we go.
There you go. You can get them on Amazon. You can, of course, you can get them at any bookstore, Barnes and Noble. And if you're in Hollywood, you can actually get them at the Hollywood Heritage Museum and all the gift shops, all the major gift shops along.
So it's a
Hollywood
twofer.
Boulevard.
You go see the museum and you get the book.
You can. The barn. That was the C.B. DeMille barn.
Where the museum.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you can get my book just about anywhere. And one more thing, if I may say. The one group that's been very, very supportive of what I do is Rotary International. I've spoken to probably 95 chapters of Rotary because what we're trying to accomplish, and one of the stories that I do tell is the story of how Lionel Barrymore changed the image of how we see disability in society today, because he was in a wheelchair, became very, very popular. He's tied to that popularity in that Helen Keller, who went to the movies even though she was deaf and she was blind. and was told the movie's a story by Braille, wrote a letter to Eleanor Roosevelt and her husband, who was also in a wheelchair, ended up partnering with Hollywood, and they ended up raising more money for the March of Dimes than any other charity group, and it's a story that we want to tell in a documentary. So now that's going to be my next project, is to turn my books into a documentary, and the story we're going to tell is that story of the tie-in between Lionel Barrymore, Helen Keller, and President Roosevelt.
So you know what's funny to me?
Go watch the movie Key Largo, where he's in the wheelchair trying to rail against Edward G. Robinson.
Johnny Rocco.
Johnny Rocco, yeah. You know, I will tell you, Manny, it sounds to me like from day one, you have given voice to whatever it is that you're interested in, and that you continue to do this.
And found a way to make a living doing it.
Very similar to Paul, where he basically is faced with his company and his clients going away with the recession, the recent recession, and
reinventing
himself and
exactly.
going back to sort of the roots of what he enjoyed. And we talk about encore careers all the time when it comes to boomers and pursuit of passion. And I think, you know, would you gentlemen agree that if you actually do something that you love in one form or the other, you're never really working a day in your life?
And I would agree with that, and I would go one step further, that the best individual to promote who you are, the best way to brand yourself, is don't hire somebody. You are your
own brand.
You are your best brand.
And do not, if I may, do not ever rob yourself by conventional thinking or whatever. Don't ever rob yourself of the uniqueness of your own story.
I would have to agree with that. Boy, what a great way to conclude the program.
Really easy to do. And,
on that, we're going to have to end this conversation.
Manny, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. It just went by like that.
Absolutely. I will end with one more thing, because I know we've got another show coming up. But one more thing, and I will share with you. Do you know how the Caesar salad got named?
Yes.
Tijuana.
No, not the Caesar. The Cobb salad.
You don't know what the Caesar salad?
No, not the Caesar.
Okay.
I have
Caesar was down in Tijuana.
I got the Cobb. You've got the Caesar.
So let me end this, because I'll share this with you. Okay. Caesar salad. So it's got nothing to do with Italians, got nothing to do with Julius Caesar, got nothing to do with Roman history. It has to do with a gentleman by the name of Caesar Cardini, who has a place in Tijuana during the Prohibition. Right. And he basically, people are from Hollywood, are going down there for the bullfights. They're stopping San Clemente. They got a mistress in the little Ole Hansen house over there, whatever, right? They got bootleg gin coming in on the international boats in the San Onofre caves, right? And they go down to Tijuana, and they're watching the bullfights or whatever, right? There's a reason why San Clemente is halfway exactly between San Diego and Los Angeles, okay? I mean, right? So it's far enough, but close enough. So the guy runs out of food, and he's got a bunch of drunks basically hanging out at his bar that are all of a certain caliber, right? And he goes into the fridge and he figures out whatever the heck he has, and he puts it together, and it becomes Caesar's salad.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And that's how the Caesar salad was invented. Now, roll back to a couple of years ago, I'm doing a project down in San Diego, and it's on the corner of 5th and University in Hillcrest. Okay, and this is an old building, and it turns out it used to be the Harvey Milk Cafe. You know, turns out that used to be Caesar Cardini's original restaurant.
Oh my God!
And so again, people, look into history. It's all around you. You're living it in Southern California.
And since I mentioned it, I at least have to say the Cobb salad was created by the gentleman who ran and owned the Brown Derby.
Yeah.
Some of his frequent guests were some of the top stars of Hollywood, including the wonderkind of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, Irving Thalberg, who had a very, very tender stomach. So what he did is he compartmentalized all of the ingredients into chicken and lettuce and tomato, and became the Cobb salad. And unfortunately, the Cobb salad lived on. Poor Irving Thalberg only lived to be 35.
Yeah,
so even your food has a history, ladies and gentlemen. Manny, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure. And join us next week for another Raad Life, Wednesdays.
You have been listening to the Raad Life Radio Show with your host and age explorer, Raad Gantos, brought to you on the one and only octalkradio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.